Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a winter storm that will be developing into this upcoming week. This winter storm will pretty much upend a rather warm pattern that's been going on for much of the fall across the United States. I mean, here in my area, the leaves are still on the trees in record amounts. I believe that this is probably one of the longest falls we've had, and officially we still haven't had a freeze below 32 degrees in my area, which usually is around October 15th, so it's more than a month late at this point. So it's been pretty incredible, and it looks as if that may be coming to an end. There will be a system coming in from the Pacific Northwest, a rather large one. It will have a very potent low pressure with it, a lot of moisture. A lot of the mountains will see tons of snow. The Cascades, the Sierra Nevada, the Wasatch, the Bitterroots, I mean, all these ranges will get in on some snowfall. And then this system will sprawl out into the Midwest, and it will create a massive wind field. There will be rain, quite a bit of it. There could be some severe storms, quite a bit of snow, especially into Canada. And, of course, I also talk about southern Canada in my videos. I try to include everyone. And that will create a kind of a path for yet another system to come through that could dump some snow further south into like Indiana, Ohio. So it's an interesting system, interesting setup. The models have been struggling with it a little bit, but I kind of want to take you in and show you. So right now we do have, again, a lot of precipitation streaming into the northwest. I mean, Washington, Idaho, Oregon, the British Columbia, right? Alberta there, we'll be seeing quite a bit of precipitation. Lower elevations that typically see rain will be seeing rain. The higher elevations seeing quite a bit of snow. And yeah, this isn't just a measly system that's moisture starved. It is loaded with moisture, as usually the ones with the Pacific do that. Notice that we have a high pressure center across the southeast. So essentially what this thing does, you can see right there, high pressure. All high pressures, at least in the northern hemisphere, spin clockwise. So its winds, as you can see, are following this wind field. And what that does is, as you can guess, it pumps a lot of Gulf of Mexico moisture into the United States, into the area kind of where the Rockies are, just south and east of the Rockies. And so any system, it's a classic setup. Any system that has cold air will be able to pick this up and turn it into snow. Now, do note that out ahead of it, there's quite a bit of disconnect. The cold air isn't really quite caught up with the warm air here with the moisture load from the south. So this thing moves up initially. You could see very heavy rain, some significant storms as well, moving north through the day, Sunday, and into the overnight. And this high pressure is still very stubborn here, so this moisture doesn't really stream to the east. It streams very far towards the north, and you can see it shoots up. There's a really strong low pressure. There's a lot of rain here that typically this time of the year, when you see such a defined band of heavy precipitation on the backside of a low pressure, at this time of the year in this portion of the country, that would fall as snow. However, again, it's been incredibly warm, and you can see the anomalies are just going to be off the charts, essentially, so not really conducive for snow. However, do note that there is snow across Wyoming, Montana, that cold air blast, except again it's delayed. But because of how strong this this high pressure is, this low pressure just sends it to the north. It blocks it from going towards the east, and what this allows is for it to go and find essentially that cold air. If the cold air doesn't meet it, the low pressure is like, all right, I will find it on my own, and it does find it on its own. You can see it kind of merges into this cold air mass. Obviously, at this point, it's pretty windy on the back side of it and on the front side of it. On the back side, there's obviously going to be quite a bit of cooler air coming in. From here, it's going to be pumping up tons of warm air, and at this current image, if you were to turn on the anomalies, you could see very warm out ahead of the system, and really not that cold out behind it. A little cooler than average, but nothing incredible. Do note there could also be a area of low pressure separately that develops across the Gulf of Mexico, and this could impact the panhandles of Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, with quite a bit of heavy rainfall. Do note that this system eventually does expand quite a bit, and again becomes almost like a cut-off low pressure. A lot of snow here across Manitoba and Saskatchewan, which is going to lead to quite a bit of snow across those cities. Edmonton, Brandon, Winnipeg could pick up a decent amount of snow from this thing. Do note, if you live in Thunder Bay, say the provinces in Ontario, Canada, other cities in Ontario, Canada, that seems to be mainly rain on your side. But do note, as the system spins to the north, it becomes really strong, the wind field. This allows cool air to dive into the central United States by midweek of this week. And do note that there are continued storms coming into the the Washington and Oregon area, quite a bit of them, and this will continuously dump more and more precipitation across the Northwest. That is something to note. But because of how this system is located, there is still a strong drive towards from the Gulf of Mexico in terms of moisture. So this thing, because of the strong wind field it has, shoots up. You could see some moisture. There's a low pressure that develops, and this thing is a low pressure that essentially is traveling towards the north and west, which is very unusual. It does happen though sometimes. Notice on the backside we have snow showers across, say, Minnesota, into Iowa, into Wednesday and Thursday. And the models have been struggling with this, but there is going to be plenty of cold air here, especially on the backside of this, especially with the strong low pressure, even from just the latent heat, latent cooling that goes on. We could see that rain turn into snow, and you could see that's what the model is showing. It's gonna be a messy situation wherever this does occur. It's gonna be really hard to predict because it might not be snowing at any given portion for more than a few hours, and even if it does, because of this low pressure that's really strong and kind of going first to the northwest and then to the southwest. Again, very, very unusual directions for a low pressure to be traveling in across the United States. The snow and rain boundaries are going to be constantly shifting because technically on a system like this, the cold front is way over here, and a warm front would be something like this. So this thing's completely out of whack. More typically, we have a system that has a cold front like this and a warm front like this across the Midwest. That's a very classic storm. So you can see this thing's almost flipped completely 90 degrees towards, I guess, towards the north. And this thing is going to be an interesting system. So you can see, obviously, it has quite a bit of strong winds around it. There could be some snow, some rain, and then potentially yet another system that does something off of this system's back across the northeast, moving first northwest, then southeast. So really strange. That will keep the temperatures cooler, though. But do note that there is warm air that begins to creep in towards the end of next week, towards Saturday and Sunday, and continued systems across the northwest, which will be dumping more and more snow and precipitation across these areas. So that is definitely something we'll have to watch for. And then do note that there is potential for more storms with potentially snow much further south. Unfolds, you could see a little cool blast of air, maybe with some Alberta Clipper, Manitoba Mauler, Saskatchewan Screamers, those classic systems that come from the north. So in terms of snowfall, I reckon it's going to be hard to predict them. Any snowfall amounts for, say, the Midwest. Obviously, the Northwest and the West are going to be seeing a lot of snow, especially, again, the Cascades, the Bitterroots, and into the Alberta, British Columbia, especially British Columbia. Do note from that midweek system, there could be quite a bit of snow that falls across Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And then again, potentially some snow across the Ohio Valley, eastern Great Lakes, but that is really going to be hard to predict exactly where. But there is a threat for that somewhere. Now, I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster event, but don't be caught off guard if, say, in Detroit or Chicago or Indianapolis, you do see some snow this week. I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's a possibility. Let's take a look at the European model because there are differences, and as I did mention, unfortunately, these models do not have the best handle on this system. So we have that massive system from the northwest, again, with that cold air mass, but again, it's late. This system is pretty much thriving in very warm temperatures all around it, towards the north, towards the south. This high pressure is pumping it full of moisture, so there's going to be a lot of rainfall with this thing. And you can see at this point, this is a very classic low pressure. There's that powerful cold front with severe storms. There's that warm front, also rain and storms out ahead of that, and then you can see this thing just goes straight to the north. It doesn't even have much of an eastward direction. At first it does, and you can see these storms pass through Illinois, Indiana, and that massive potential cold front that's stretching out across Louisiana, Mississippi, and it kind of disconnects from this main system and becomes its own little thing. The European shows that, and that's that little potential another system that then does that weird hook around that I was talking about. But you can see the system finally does find that cold air, and once it does, it produces quite a bit of snow. Notice the European shows more snow into, say, North Dakota, South Dakota, a lot more moisture and heavier snowfall totals most likely with the European model into Manitoba, Saskatchewan. You can see it sticks around there for a while. Now, because of how powerful this cold front is, you can see behind it the cold air sweeping in. It's going to be really odd. There's going to be probably colder temperatures in Kansas and Missouri than there are towards towards James Bay where polar bears live. So again, a very odd system. Notice continued precipitation streaming in towards the northwest throughout most of this week. And now notice we do have these pockets of precipitation, right? That cold front across the southeast that never really fully dissipated, and with this really, really strong push, it kind of nudges it upwards, and you can see it develops a new low pressure. Except, again, it's a really weird one. The cold front is almost situated like the warm front would be in a typical scenario, and the warm front is, again, stretched out straight northwards, which is very unusual. And do note, again, it does that same thing the GFS does. Pretty strong low pressure, a lot of strong winds, and it does convert some of that rain into snow. It probably won't last for too long in one given location, but it could fall intensely for a while. So that could spur some decent snowfall totals. You can see it. This European targets it more south as opposed to the GFS, which targeted more of Michigan, Wisconsin. This one targets Ohio and Kentucky. And yeah, this thing potentially also does something similar across the northeast. Spreads out, becomes completely cut off from any jet stream, so it just meanders around in one area for a good while. And you can see continued moisture streaming in towards the northwest. It's going to be quite incredible, actually. I could show you the noon model run, which went out a little further. I could see, I'll show you if there are any major differences. Up until really this main system now, you can see it shows it going towards the north and disconnected from that cold air mass, finally reaching the snow there. Cold front disconnecting, continuing moisture across the northwest, so far no differences. And it does, again, develop that low pressure. Pretty strong one. There could be a lot of rain with this, especially in areas where it stays for quite a while. I mean, this thing could completely stop moving for a good 12 to 24 hours across. You could see central southern Michigan there. You could see the European from model run to model run, pretty consistent, showing a thud of snow across, say, Indianapolis, maybe into northeastern, northwestern Ohio, central Illinois. Again, shouldn't last for too long in any one given location, but it does eventually meander out and produce that cutoff low across the northeast. There is a AI, I guess, version of the European model that's supposed to be helped out by AI. I haven't really tested it yet in terms of how good it is. It's supposed to be better, but it doesn't have the rain or snow distinction, but you can see it's a lot more sloppy. It's not necessarily as high resolution, but it does show that system in a very similar fashion as the other models. It does show it developing into really large low pressure here with quite a bit of cold air, as it's signified by these blue lines, the 540 line, which is typically the freezing line, diving through Missouri, Kansas there. And it does also show that second low pressure being developed. So I would say it's pretty similar to the other models, the European operational one and the GFS. Continued moisture across the north and west. I wanted to show you this model because this one does show something interesting. It seems to favor a more colder pattern into the end of November and in December. You can see it shows a system which definitely this would be mainly snow on the backside of this, as you can see the blue 540 line running quite a bit south of it. And yeah, you could see a lot more cold air dominant this one than any of the other models. And towards the end, by the last days of November, it even shows a system potentially with a decent amount of snow across Illinois or Wisconsin. Again, it's far out, but it's interesting that this AI European model shows a lot more cold air. You can see some of it is really cold across the United States than the European or GFS itself. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And for now, the NAM 12KM, which is a model that goes out 84 hours, they don't show the full length of this system. They do show the first wave of it, right? The massive surge of moisture from the south. It's eventually hitting the cold air in Canada by Tuesday into Wednesday, developing quite a bit of snow and cold air, driving that into the United States, south into the United States, but it does not show that secondary low pressure develop. I mean, it probably will, it just doesn't go out far enough. So its snowfall totals look something like this. You can see definitely favoring that snow across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and into the northwest mountains. That's probably an area that's definitely going to see snow. And the rest, again, don't go far out enough. Canadian, I could show you that one. This one goes out to 240 hours. You can see there's that surge of moisture. There's that cold air across Canada. It goes straight north again. So that's the models, they agree on that. But what they, I guess I would argue, disagree on is that exact placement of that second low pressure and where exactly that rain snow line sets up. You can see the Canadian is a lot more favorable for the snow across Indiana, Ohio, and it would be more conducive to snow. We'll have to see if that happens. And it seems to stick around with that cold air for quite a bit longer and does show some cooler temperatures as opposed to the GFS and European that show more like averages or temperatures going back to average, which is definitely cooler than now, but not necessarily cold on an anomaly basis. And then after that, also develops more of a zonal flow across the United States. So we'll have to see. For now, it's an interesting system. I'll obviously keep you guys updated. And I'll catch you guys all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.